Imagine you are standing in the middle of a vast, dark library. You are searching for a single book that contains the secret to solving every problem you will ever face: financial ruin, career stagnation, or personal crisis. You find a book, but when you open it, the pages are blank. Why? Because the secret isn't a piece of information. It's not a hack or a tip. The secret is the lens through which you view the world. Most people are running through life with a map of a city that no longer exists. They use outdated logic, emotional biases, and common sense that is actually common nonsense. This is why they work 80 hours a week and stay in debt. This is why they make the same mistakes in their 50s that they made in their 20s. Charlie Munger, the man who helped build a $700 billion empire, called this the psychology of human misjudgment. He realized that to win, you don't need to be a genius. You need a latticework of mental models. A single model is a thread. A latticework is a net, and a net can catch a fortune. In this 40-minute masterclass, we are going to build your net, knot by knot, model by model. We are going to upgrade your mental operating system from a version 1.0 to a version 10.0. Chapter 1. First Principles Thinking. The Physics of Truth. 1.1. The Death of Analogy. The greatest obstacle to solving a problem is the phrase, "That's just the way it is." This is reasoning by analogy. It is the practice of looking at what everyone else is doing and copying it with a 10% variation. Analogy is safe. Analogy is comfortable. But analogy is where empires go to die. When Elon Musk decided he wanted to go to Mars, the entire aerospace industry laughed. They showed him the analogy. Rockets are expensive. They have always been expensive. Only governments can afford them. The cost of a single rocket was $65 million. If Musk had thought by analogy, he would have quit. Instead, he used first principles. 1.2. Breaking the Atoms, First Principles. Thinking requires you to become a mental chemist. You take a problem and you apply heat until it melts down to its fundamental, irreducible truths. Musk asked, "What is a rocket made of?" The answer: aluminum, titanium, copper, carbon fiber. Then he asked, "What is the spot market price of these materials?" He discovered that the raw material cost was only 2% of the total rocket price. The other 98% was human inefficiency. The cost of bureaucracy, outdated manufacturing, and layers of middlemen. By rebuilding the process from the bricks up, SpaceX reduced the cost of spaceflight by nearly 10 times. 1.3. Implementation. Solving the impossible. How do you apply this when you are stuck? Identify your current assumptions. I can't start a business because I don't have capital. Break it down to basic truths. What is a business? It is a system that provides value in exchange for money. What is capital? It is a tool to buy time or resources. Reconstruct. Can I provide value without buying resources first? For example, knowledge-based content, AI-driven services. When you stop looking at the castle and start looking at the Lego bricks, you realize yukuthyasidung bat kuthugi. Chapter 2. Inversion. The Strategy of Ruthless Avoidance. 2.1. The Jacobi Method. The mathematician Carl Jacobi had a strange way of solving complex formulas. He would say, "Man must immer umkehren," which translates to invert, always invert. He believed that many of the hardest problems in life cannot be solved by moving forward. They can only be solved by looking at the finish line and walking backward. 2.2. The Stupidity Filter. Charlie Munger took this mathematical concept and applied it to life. He realized that it is much easier to avoid being stupid than it is to be brilliant. Most people spend their lives looking for the grand slam, the one big move that will make them rich. In doing so, they take massive risks and make catastrophic errors. Munger's approach was different. Tell me where I'm going to die, so I'll never go there. If you want to have a successful relationship, don't ask, how do I be a great partner? That's too vague. Invert it. What would definitely ruin my relationship? Answer. Lying, cheating, lack of communication, being unreliable. Strategy. Simply do not do those things. Success is the residue of avoided failure. 2.3 Inversion in financial survival. Instead of asking, how do I make $1 million today? Which often leads to desperation and scams, ask, how could I guarantee I stay poor for the next 10 years? Spend more than I earn. Rely on a single source of income that I don't control. Stop learning and assume I know everything. Surround myself with people who have no ambition. Now, you have a blacklist. Your only job is to ensure that none of those things happen. If you simply avoid the behaviors that guarantee poverty, wealth becomes an inevitability over time. Inversion is the ultimate guardrail. It turns a chaotic search for the secret into a disciplined mission of avoidance. Chapter 3. Second-order thinking. The and then what? Filter 3.1. The chess player's vision. First-order thinking is what most people do. It is looking at the immediate, obvious consequence of an action. I am hungry, so I will eat this chocolate cake. The first-order consequence is pleasure. Second-order thinking asks, and then what? The second-order consequence is a sugar crash and weight gain. Third order is poor health. Fourth order is a shorter life. 3.2 Systemic consequences. In the world of business and content creation, first-order thinkers look for immediate views. They use extreme clickbait that lies to the viewer. They get the click, first order, but they lose the trust, second order. The algorithm flags them as low quality, third order, and the channel dies, fourth order. 3.3 The advantage of patience. Second-order thinkers are willing to take a loss in the first order to win in the second and third. They might spend more time researching a script, which feels slow, first-order loss, but results in high audience retention, second-order win, which triggers the YouTube algorithm to push the video to millions, third-order massive win. Before every major decision, draw a branch. Ask, and then what? At least 3 times. If the third-order consequence is negative, the decision is a mistake, no matter how good the first-order result looks. Chapter 4. The Pareto Principle. The 80-20 Strategy of Leverage 4.1. The Mathematical Law of Inequality. In 1896, an Italian economist named Vilfredo Pareto noticed a strange pattern. 80% of the land in Italy was owned by only 20% of the population. Later, he looked at his garden and saw that 20% of the pea pods produced 80% of the peas. This wasn't a coincidence. It was a universal law of nature and systems. The Pareto principle states that in almost any field, 80% of the results come from 20% of the efforts. Most people fail because they spend 80% of their time on nadi, the trivial many, the tasks that feel like work but produce almost zero value. To master your life, you must become a Paretoist. You must ruthlessly identify the vital few. 4.2. The Content Creator. Trap. Let's apply this to building a global content empire. Most creators spend hours picking the perfect font, adjusting the color of their logo, or browsing for background music. They think they are working. They are not. They are procrastinating with low-leverage tasks. In the world of YouTube and AI-driven content, the 20% that drives 80% of views. The topic, is it interesting? The hook, do they stay past 30 seconds? And the thumbnail, do they click? The 80% that is noise. The description tags, the channel banner, the exact shade of blue in the captions, and checking the real-time analytics every 5 minutes. 4.3. The strategy of ruthless focus. If you have 10 channels to manage, you cannot afford to be a perfectionist. You must apply the 80-20 rule to your energy. Spend 80% of your creative brainpower on the first 60 seconds of your script. If you win the first 60 seconds, the algorithm will forgive almost any other minor mistake. Apply this to your character selection. Out of your 10 personas, Munger, Ford, Hill, etc., the Pareto principle dictates that 2 of them will likely generate 80% of your total revenue. When the data shows you who the winners are, you must have the courage to starve the 8 losers of your time and double down on the 2 winners. Leverage is about doing less, but doing the right things with absolute intensity. Chapter 5. Occam's Razor. The Law of Parsimony, 5.1. The complexity addiction. Human beings have a biological bias toward complexity. We believe that if a problem is big, the solution must be complicated. We build 50-step workflows and buy expensive all-in-one software suites because they make us feel sophisticated. But in a complex world, complexity is a death sentence. Occam's razor, named after the 14th century friar William of Occam, states, among competing hypotheses, the simplest one is usually the correct one. Or, in the language of systems, the simplest path is the most reliable path. 5.2. Troubleshooting with the razor. When a project isn't working, when your videos get 0 views or your revenue stalls, your brain will try to create a conspiracy theory. The complex hypothesis. The YouTube algorithm has shadow banned my IP address because I am using an older laptop model and I need a high-end Mac and a US-based VPN to reset my digital footprint. The Occam's razor hypothesis. The thumbnail was boring and the topic didn't promise a benefit to the viewer. 5.3. Building lean systems. Every extra step in a process is a point of failure. If your workflow for creating a video involves 10 different AI tools, 5 file transfers, and 3 manual editing stages, you are building a system that will eventually break. Occam's razor demands that you subtract. 1. Can I do this with 1 tool instead of 3? 2. Can I simplify the script instead of adding more fancy words? 3. Can I automate the upload process? Simplicity allows for speed. In a race against time and debt, the one who can execute a simple plan 100 times will always beat the one who tries to execute a complex plan once. Chapter 6. The Circle of Competence. The Boundary of Genius. 6.1. Staying in the spot. Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger are considered geniuses, but they would tell you they are only geniuses in a very small spot. They don't invest in biotech, they don't invest in complex crypto algorithms, and they don't invest in tech startups they don't understand. They stay inside their circle of competence. The model is simple. You don't need to know everything. You just need to know exactly where the boundaries of your knowledge lie. Most people lose everything because they drift out of their circle due to ego or FOMO, fear of missing out. 6.2. The dangers of circle drift. Imagine you are building a finance channel. You spend months studying Munger and Buffett. You understand their mindset. This is your circle of competence. Then you see a trend in funny cat videos or political news. You decide to pivot because that's where the views are. Now you're outside your circle. You don't understand the audience, you don't know the keywords, and you don't have a competitive advantage. You become average, and average is a commodity that is easily replaced. 6.3. Dominating your niche. To solve a massive problem, you must become the absolute authority in one narrow field. Define your circle. I am the expert on AI-driven financial mindset content. Deepen the circle. Read every book, watch every speech, and study every data point in that niche. Ignore the rest. When a shiny new object appears outside your circle, use your inversion model and realize that chasing it is a guaranteed path to failure. Mastery happens when you say no to 99% of things so you can say yes to the 1% that is inside your circle. Chapter 7. Compounding. The eighth wonder of the world. 7.1. The physics of exponential growth. Albert Einstein reportedly called compounding the eighth wonder of the world. He said, "He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it." Most people think linearly. If they work for 8 hours, they expect 8 hours of pay. If they post 10 videos, they expect 10 times the views of one video. But the universe doesn't work linearly. It works exponentially. Compounding is the process where small incremental gains, when reinvested over a long period, lead to an explosive, nonlinear result. In the beginning, the curve is so flat it looks like a straight line. This is the valley of disappointment. This is where 99% of people quit because they don't see the hockey stick growth that is coming. 7.2. The 1% rule in action. If you improve your skills, your script writing, your AI prompting, your thumbnail design, by just 1% every single day, you might not notice a difference on Tuesday or Wednesday. But mathematics dictates that after 365 days, you will be 37 times better than when you started. Now, imagine applying this to 10 channels. Each video is an employee that works for you 24/7, forever. Each view is a data point that teaches the algorithm who your audience is. In the first 6 months, you might earn $0. But on month 7, the compounding effect of 180 videos across 10 channels creates a critical mass. Suddenly, one video goes viral. It pulls traffic to your other 179 videos, and your revenue doesn't just grow, it explodes. 7.3. The price of compounding, endurance. The only way to fail with compounding is to interrupt it unnecessarily. Most people interrupt the process by changing their niche, skipping a week of uploads, or quitting because they don't see results. To solve a massive problem, you must have the stomach for volatility. You must be willing to look like a failure for 300 days so you can look like a genius on day 301. Compounding is a backloaded process. All the real wealth is earned in the last 10% of the time you spend. Chapter 8. The Latticework of Psychological Misjudgment. To reach the level of a billionaire thinker like Charlie Munger, you must understand not just logic, but the human bug. Our brains are wired for the savannah, not for the 21st century digital economy. These psychological tendencies often act as the friction that stops our mental models from working. 8.1. The social proof tendency, the herd instinct. We are biologically programmed to look at what others are doing to determine our own behavior. In the savannah, if everyone ran, you ran. Today, social proof makes people copy the same boring content everyone else is making. The counter model? Use inversion. If everyone is making short, low-value clips, the social proof is wrong. The real value is in the deep, long-form wisdom that others are too lazy to create. 8.2. The commitment and consistency bias. Once we take a stand or make a public statement, we feel an intense pressure to remain consistent with that stand, even if it is proven wrong. The danger. You might spend months on a channel that isn't working because you committed to it. The solution. Use first principles. Ask, if I were starting today with the data I have now, would I start this channel? If the answer is no, kill it. Munger says, each year you should destroy at least one of your most loved ideas. 8.3. The availability heuristic. We tend to overestimate the importance of information that is available or recent in our minds. If you see a news report about a new YouTube policy, you might panic and change your whole strategy. The filter. Use second-order thinking. Is this a temporary noise? First order? Or a systemic change? Second order? Usually, it's just noise. Focus on the timeless principles of value and compounding. Chapter 9. The Synthesis. Building your architecture. 9.1. The Latticework in Motion. A single mental model is like a single pillar. It can support some weight, but it cannot support a skyscraper. A latticework is a system where the models reinforce each other. When you face a problem, you must run it through the lattice. First principles. What are the fundamental truths of this problem? Inversion. What would make this problem worse? Avoid that. Second order thinking. What happens next? Plan for the second and third order. Pareto. What is the 20% that will solve 80% of this? Occam's razor. What is the simplest solution? Circle of competence. Am I the right person to solve this? Compounding. How can I make the solution work for me forever? 9.2. The Billionaire Mindset. Blueprint success is not a lottery. It is an architecture. By using these 7 models, you have stopped being a gambler and started being an engineer of your own life. You are no longer reacting to the world. You are designing your interaction with it. You have the tools. You have the printing press of the 21st century, AI and global content. The only variable left is discipline. Discipline is the bridge between the mental model and the real-world result. 9.3 Final call to action. Stop looking for hacks. Stop looking for secrets. Start building your latticework. Every hour you spend thinking through these models is an hour you spend upgrading your most valuable asset, your brain. The path to solving any problem, no matter how many billions it involves, is a path of clarity, simplicity, and relentless compounding. Close the library of blank pages. Open the toolbox of the elite. It's time to build.